his private life, obviously, a lot of it remains private. So we don't have the type of picture of his private life that we do of the wars, the ghazawat, the public, the delegations, the trials and tribulations. And because of this, it's a topic that it's difficult to talk comprehensively about. Nonetheless, what we do have is sufficient for us to form lessons, overarching principles. And so inshallah, I want to summarize some of the main benefits and lessons we can learn looking at the Prophet ﷺ as a husband, as a father-in-law, as a grandfather. And obviously, we're going to see him obviously in the masculine roles because he was masculine. But our sisters as well should benefit from being in the family. What does it mean to be a family person? And we begin by one of the most obvious things from the seerah. And that is the love that the Prophet ﷺ had for his family is something that is apparent and was apparent. It's a constant theme throughout the entire seerah. It's public, it is perceptible. It is something that the private and the public all know about. The way that he loved our mother Aisha radiallahu anha. Before her, the way that he loved our mother Khadija radiallahu anha. In fact, his love for Khadija is legendary. His love for Khadija is legendary. So much so, our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, she never saw Khadija. She never met Khadija. And yet she says, I was never jealous of any of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ except for Khadija, even though I never saw her. Why? Because even though she never saw the interactions between the Prophet ﷺ and Khadija, she knew as his wife how much there was love in his heart for her. And that love, obviously, it's natural to feel a competition in that stage. It's completely natural. That love was so obvious even after the death of Khadija, that Aisha radiallahu anha felt a type of competition and jealousy. I already mentioned that after the death of Khadija, our Prophet ﷺ was not seen smiling for an entire year. 1 year, and nothing made him happy. That's the way sometimes tragedies really take a while to cope. And his love for Khadija was so much that he would connect with the memory of Khadija. He would connect with the living who had a connection with Khadija. For example,
if the brothers and sisters in the back can please quiet down. If the brothers are talking in the back, if they can please settle down out of respect for the Shaykh. He's speaking. He's come giving us his entire day. He's extremely tired. He has a migraine. If he's here with us, out of respect, you can talk while I'm speaking. I don't mind. I'm a nobody, right? But I'm just here so I don't get fined. But everyone else that is here, sitting in the back, standing, please settle down so Shaykh can continue his session without being interrupted. It is not right to be interrupting him while he's speaking. The brothers that are standing in the back, if you want to speak, you have the whole hall outside and then you have the whole parking lot as well. You can go there. Please don't speak inside the hall. Sisters as well, please respect the Shaykh and please settle down, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Bismillah. So his love for Khadija was so obvious that even though Aisha never saw Khadija, she knew the love that he had for her. And that love continued even after her death. How does love continue after the death of somebody? By resurrecting her memory, by keeping in touch with those whom your loved ones were in touch with. You know, a part of our sunnah, listen to this, brothers and sisters, when somebody came to the Prophet and said, what can I do? My mother's passed away. How can I honor my mother? He gave a list of things. You know one of the things he said? One of the things he said was to visit her friends whom she would visit in her life. You visit them. Keep in touch with the people who are in touch with your loved one. This is one of the ways our Sharia honors the love that we have for those that have moved on. So when Khadija moves on, what does our Prophet ﷺ do? Every time somebody would gift a platter of meat, meat was rare. Meat was a gift the Prophet ﷺ would eat, unlike us every single evening, he would eat once a month. Once every 6 weeks, somebody would give a dish of meat. It's very expensive, very rare. And our Prophet ﷺ, every time somebody gifted meat, immediately he would gift to others, right then and there. The people of the Sufa, people like Abu Hurairah, the fuqara of the Ansar. And one section of the meat, you know where it would go? Give this to so-and-so, she was Khadija's best friend. Give this to so-and-so, she would visit Khadija when Khadija's sick. And one day, when a gift of meat had come, the Prophet gave most of it to the circle of Khadija. You know, we all have our cliques, right? We all have our inner circle of friends, right? Some of it is natural, no problem. So Khadija had her circle. And that circle has migrated to Medina. And the Prophet ﷺ is aware who they are. Obviously, he doesn't go visit them, it's the opposite gender, but he knows who they are. So he would gift the meat to those ladies who were friends of Khadija. And one day, Aisha radiallahu anha, she got frustrated. And her emotions got the better of her. And this is normal and natural. And in these slip-ups, astaghfirullah, we're not criticizing, we're humanizing. And we're learning that, you know what? It's normal and okay to make a mistake and make up for it, right? Sometimes people get overly sensitive, by the way. When you mention these authentic incidents that are mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim, all the books mention them, right? People who don't understand, they say, astaghfirullah, how can you narrate this about our mother Aisha? We say, I'm not narrating, it's in our books here. Number two, it's not astaghfirullah meant to criticize, it's meant to humanize. She's the one telling us what she did. She didn't have a problem telling us this, and she wants us to learn. And she wants us to understand, I did this, it's okay if you do it and overcome it. What did she do? Her emotions got the better of her. And one day when most of the meat went to the neighbors of Khadija, the best friends of Khadija, the confidants of Khadija, then she said something she shouldn't have said. And she said, Ya Rasulullah, for how long are you going to continue to remember an old lady with cheeks that are falling down and toothless? And she had some more adjectives, I'm going to gloss over them, okay? But she's not portraying a woman she's never seen. She's describing her with adjectives that are not the best, right? And she then says, and here I am, Allah has blessed you with a younger lady who is better than her. At that, the Prophet ﷺ had to respond. And he defended the honor of Khadija many years after Khadija was no longer there. Even in her memory, he defended her honor. And Aisha said, I had never seen him angry up until this point in time. This is the first time he showed anger to Aisha. That love that he had for Khadija had now been, the red line has been crossed. You said something you should not have said. And he responded firmly and bluntly, no, by Allah, Allah did not give me somebody better than her. Don't say that. By Allah, Allah did not give me somebody better than her. For she believed in me when no one believed in me. And she supported me financially when no one supported me financially. And she supported me emotionally when no one supported me. And she gave me children, and none of my other wives have given me children. Don't say you are better. And Aisha said, after that, I never mentioned Khadija for the rest of my life. She learned that, look, this is a line you don't cross. The point is though, that love that he had for Khadija, for all of his wives, it was sensible, palpable. You knew that it was there. And of course, here's Aisha radiallahu anha getting, positively jealous of Khadija. Again, this is normal in this situation. And yet, she herself had such a special status, and everybody knew it. All the people of Medina knew this. How much the Prophet ﷺ had that emotions for Aisha. Once, Amr ibn al-As came, and you have to remember, by the way, that society was patriarchal. It wasn't considered manly to talk about the feelings of your wife. It wasn't considered masculine to say, I love my wife. This was something that was deemed not worthy of a man. And our Prophet ﷺ mainstreamed this concept. Because family is the building block of society. And when family is protected, society is protected. And our Sharia aims to protect the husband and wife bond as much as possible. And the way to protect it is to enshrine love as the building block of that marriage. And that is why our Prophet ﷺ was public about his love. Understand this point. There is a theological wisdom in the Prophet ﷺ being so public about his love in a society that deemed it inappropriate for a masculine man, for a leader to say, I love my wife. Because he wants to make this clear to everybody. This is what our religion wants. In a famous incident of Amr ibn al-As, everybody knows this hadith, but let me contextualize it for you. Amr ibn al-As was one of the last people to make hijrah. In fact, he was the last person to make hijrah before the conquest of Mecca. The last muhajir is Amr ibn al-As. After him, there's the conquest of Mecca, there's no hijrah. Amr ibn al-As is the last muhajir. 7th year of the hijrah, 6th year of the hijrah, 7th year actually, he makes hijrah. And within a few weeks of arriving in Medina, he begins to think, the Prophet ﷺ loves me the most out of all of the Sahaba. More than Abu Bakr, more than Umar, I am number one in his eyes. Can anybody guess why would Amr ibn al-As think that he's number one and he's accepted Islam so late? Can anybody guess why? How so? Elaborate. Good? Anything more? It's a valid point, but need a little bit more. Why did Amr ibn al-As think the Prophet ﷺ loved him more than all the other companions? So both of you combined, let me just rephrase it. It's correct what you're saying, but the phrasing, inshallah, what I'm trying to say is, the Prophet ﷺ made everybody feel the most special when he spoke with you. That was his character. When he spoke with you, you thought, that's it, you are number one in the world. That was the akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ. So somebody who's the last convert, Amr ibn al-As, can think he's number one. And so one day, he wanted to prove to the rest of the companions he's number one. So in the masjid, when all the people are sitting there, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, after salah, he stands up and he asks, Ya Rasulullah, who do you love the most? Look at that confidence. He's like, yeah, everybody, look, just listen. Listen to what he's gonna say, huh? Who do you love the most? We all know what he said, right? Aisha. In a society that deems it inappropriate for a man to publicly say, I love my wife, he wanted to mainstream this notion. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. This is not something you shy away from. We embrace loving your wife. We want this love to be the bedrock of society. Let it be normal, let it be mainstream. This flustered Amr ibn al-As. And he said, no, Ya Rasulullah, I meant amongst the men, who do you love? Then he goes, okay, now listen. Who amongst the men? And of course he said, Abuha, her father. Even though he knew Abu Bakr before he married Aisha, but to link his love of Abu Bakr to his love of Aisha, to link his love of Abu Bakr to his love of Aisha, he says, Abuha, her father. So Amr says, okay, I get that, but after Abu Bakr, maybe number two, okay. So he said, Umar ibn al-Khattab. Amr says, after another name. And then Amr says, I got the point, and I sat down. I mean, you ask a question, you're gonna get the answer, right? So Amr learned his lesson the hard way, but we learn from this so many things. And of them, the mainstreaming and the public acknowledgement of that spousal love. So many small incidents that demonstrate this. The famous incident that you're all aware of, The famous incident that you're all aware of the Abyssinians who were throwing their spears and their javelins and they're doing acrobatics. We all love to see acrobatics, right? We all love to see people, jumping and being skilled and warriors and whatnot. And when he saw these people doing their acrobatics, his mind went to his wife Aisha. And he thought to himself, I'm sure she would like to see this as well. And so, while everybody was surrounding the people, he went back home. Now, the Prophet's house was literally like this door. Literally, you see this door in the corner there? Okay, literally, one wall, one side's the masjid, the other side is his house, right? Those of you that have been to Medina, literally, the wall of the Prophet, his house was connected to the masjid. And so you could enter his house straight from the masjid. That was a private door only for him. And Aisha and others, there was a curtain. And because there's no light from inside, nobody can see inside, but she can see outside, right? And she can see, she lifts the curtain a little bit, nobody can see inside. And she can see what's happening outside. So the Prophet ﷺ went back inside to his house, literally over there. And he called Aisha, says, do you want to see the acrobats? Do you want to see the Habasha? And Aisha was shorter than the Prophet ﷺ. So she said, yes, I want to. So he said, stand behind me. So he stood in the doorway. And because he stood there, everybody opened up so that there's an empty space, because who's going to block the Prophet from seeing, right? So now there's an empty channel to see the Habasha playing. And he said to Aisha, stand behind me. So she stood. Now she was shorter than the Prophet, so she had to put on her tiptoes. Okay? So she put on her tiptoes. She took the curtain of the house and covered herself with it as the hijab. And she put her chin on the shoulder of the Prophet ﷺ. And she put her cheek, her right cheek, on the left cheek of the Prophet ﷺ, so that she's now staring at the Habasha, and the curtain is covering her, and the Prophet ﷺ's body is covering her body. And she said, I continued to stand there until I became tired of looking at the Habasha. I'm happy at what I've seen, but I wanted to see how long the Prophet ﷺ would remain standing because of me. So I stayed there on my tiptoes until my feet could no longer carry me. And then I said, okay, Ya Rasulullah, I've had enough. Then she sat down. These small incidents indicate the Prophet ﷺ wants his wives to know that there is genuine love. This is how a marriage will flourish. Another small anecdote that is really mind-boggling, very interesting. It's in Sahih Muslim. There was a man in Medina who either had lived in Persia or was Persian. We're not sure from the reports. And so he would cook Persian cuisine, different cuisine than Medina. And one day he invited the Prophet ﷺ to his house for food. The Prophet ﷺ said, and Aisha as well, for whatever reason, he said, no, only for you. For whatever reason, we don't know his reasoning. The Prophet ﷺ said, in that case, thanks but no thanks. No. He said, oh, in that case, bring Aisha as well. So then the Prophet ﷺ bought Aisha and they both had a meal at his house. Now, think about where the Prophet ﷺ is thinking, right? In fact, we know he would not care about the cuisine he's eating. We know he's above that. But he knows that Aisha would like to eat this food. So he goes out of his way to procure an invitation for his wife. And he's not embarrassed to bring her along so that she can get some different cuisine. Again, these small things that indicate that love is there. And again, obviously we're seeing the Prophet ﷺ, but sisters as well understand the point here as a spouse, that love has to be apparent. It has to be clear. It has to be palpable. You can feel it, sense it, touch it. That's how the marriage is going to flourish. In fact, so public was this knowledge, and so clear did the Prophet ﷺ want to have people know that yes, you should love your spouse and wife, that on multiple occasions, he would tell the Sahaba, when they're going back on a journey and they see the city of Medina, he would say, you guys go ahead, I want to spend some time with Aisha. We're going to have a race in the sand. You guys go ahead and leave us here. We're going to have a race. I ask you by Allah, which man of leadership, which man, which CEO, which person of integrity would say to his followers, his murids, his whatever, you guys go ahead, I want to have a race with my wife in the sand. Many of us would think this is undignified. But the one whom Allah chose to be the recipient of the Quran did not think it is undignified. And He did this not just for Aisha, for all of us to understand. It is a part of being a good person to spend quality time with your spouse, to show your spouse you're thinking about them, you're prioritizing them. And we know that he raced with her not once, 2 times, at least 2 times. Now, when you do a race, I want you to visualize how, again, you go back to your childhood years, right? You have to draw a line in the sand. You have to set, the end mark. You have to say the equivalent of, on your mark, get set, go. You have to be running in the sand. Our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is doing that. Can you imagine? The Rahmatan lil Alameen, the one whom Jibreel would come to, and he's racing with his wife in the sand. How playful, and yet how prophetic. This is what it means to be a husband. You literally spend that quality time with your wife. And again, brothers and sisters, one of the issues we have, and wallahi it's scary, our divorce rates are on the rise. Our next generation is breaking up in unprecedented levels. And we have to be blunt and honest here. There are many reasons for this, but one of the reasons, in my opinion, is that they haven't been taught the reality of marriage. And they get their notions of marriage from television and Bollywood and Hollywood or whatever. They don't know what it means to follow the prophetic model. They don't understand love and sacrifice when it comes to marriage. They don't understand simple psychology. Something like, I have a whole lecture about, it's called The Languages of Love, right? There's something called The Languages of Love. There's a famous book, I encourage all of you to read this. Whether you're single, whether you're married, this is one of the best-selling books written by a non-Muslim therapist, and I have a lecture where I Islamicized it. I took the book and I added Seerah and Quran and Hadith, and the whole points that he had, I made an Islamic lecture out of them. The 5 Languages of Love by Gary Chapman. This is the Western book. I have The Languages of Love online, a whole lecture where I go over the 5 languages with examples from the seerah, right? And the problem comes, I'm going into a bit of a tangent, but this is necessary. The problem comes that husbands and wives usually speak different languages of love. And because the husband and wife are speaking in a different language, it's not understood that there's love there. The language that the husband is giving is not the one the wife wants to receive. The language the wife is giving is not the one the husband wants to receive. When you look at the seerah, you see the Prophet ﷺ is demonstrating all of the languages of love. We don't have time to go into all of that because time is limited, but I'm just making this point to you. In that lecture I have online, you can see The Languages of Love. I went over all 5 languages and I gave multiple examples from the seerah, from the sunnah, from the books of hadith, how the Prophet ﷺ is demonstrating love to Aisha, to Khadija, to our mothers. And one of them, for example, very important for our brothers to understand. One of the main languages of love that women want to receive but men find it difficult to give is the language of attention, quality time. Quality time. You spend quality time with your wife. This is something that men find very difficult to do. And I'll be honest with you, as a man as well, sometimes, yes, it's very difficult for me. And I tell myself, man, I'm so busy writing lectures, traveling, giving khutbahs and duroos, I don't have time for this quality time. But then I remind myself, somebody infinitely more busy than I am, with a far greater task than any scholar of our times, he would literally make time for his wives. If he can make time for his wives, then who are we to not make time for our spouses? If anybody has an excuse, I need to solve the problems of the ummah. If anybody has an excuse, but he wants to show us, you cannot solve other people's problems without solving your own. You cannot help other people without helping your own family first. So the Prophet ﷺ would regularly spend quality time with our mothers. In fact, and as you know, he was married to multiple wives, and every single day he would visit every one of them twice after Salat al-Fajr and after Salat al-Asr to make sure, do you need anything? Is everything okay? Pantry, food, money, everything. Every single day he would make regular visits and spend a few minutes every single day until finally he would stop at the house where he's going to spend the night, right? So it's a routine every single day. Not a single day goes by except that he would spend time with his wives. And Aisha radiallahu anha says that before he would enter, he would use the miswak and he would sit next to us. Again, using the miswak, making the breath nice, right? Sitting next to you, feel that closeness and proximity. All of this is talking to us about the languages of love, about feeling that connection. Another genre of ahadith, another examples that I can bring. The Ansar of Medina, because they lived with the Jewish people of Medina, they had absorbed certain Jewish rituals